Okay, so now we know that we have this triad that's made up of 2 minor thirds. It's called a diminished triad. Now, it stands to reason then that we ought to have a triad somewhere that's made up of 2 major thirds, right? And we do. And it's called an augmented triad. So think of it this way. Diminished means it's slightly more compressed, right? It's slightly smaller. It's diminished. Think of like the literal meaning of that word. It's diminished. So it's smaller. So it's 2 minor thirds because minor thirds are smaller than major thirds, right? Augmented is a term we use to mean slightly stretched apart, slightly bigger than it ought to be, right? So an augmented triad is going to be 2 major thirds. It's going to be a little bit wider and bigger than we expect it to be. Now, we've looked at our diatonic chord progression probably like 1,000 times now. And never once have I said at this point is the augmented triad. Because while the augmented triad can exist, it does not naturally exist in a major key. What that means is that without altering something, you'll never get it, right? So sometimes we need to alter chords based on some other factors in our composition. Sometimes there's a melody that you just really want to go to this note that's not in key, and that's totally okay. Remember that what we're doing is focusing right now on being perfectly in key, but in reality, when we look at music, we're very rarely strictly always in one key at a time. We go outside of the key, and that's what gives our music extra color and flavor and stuff like that. So, in order to make an augmented triad, we have to go outside of the key. But we can figure out exactly what it would be. Let's build one on C. We can build one wherever we want. So we need a major triad. So that's a major triad, C to E. And now we need another major triad from E to, it's going to be to G sharp. That's our augmented triad. You have to raise the fifth a little bit. You have to start on a major triad and then raise the fifth a little bit, or a major third and then raise the fifth. That makes our augmented triad. Sometimes we use augmented triads for modulation. And what that means is kind of like what I was talking about when I said diminished chords. That means that we use it to get to somewhere else. Like let's try this. Let me change all of this to half notes. Okay, there's my augmented triad. And let's see if I can get it to resolve to something like, I think it's going to resolve well to an A minor chord. Okay? And let's do one more thing. Watch this. Okay, so what I've got here is, this is just a C. This is a C major triad, nothing funny about it. Now I have a C augmented triad, and now I have an A minor triad inverted, right? If we take this A and put it at the bottom, it's an A minor triad. But I'm going to put it at the top. It's going to sound a little bit better that way. Because what we're going to hear is this note, this G, move chromatically. So it's going to go G, G sharp, and resolve to A. Okay? So that's what we're going to hear in this. So this augmented chord is a transition chord. We're not going to sit on that chord for a long time. You know, it's not going to be a real pretty sound, but it's going to make this feel like the intended result. Like it's going to feel like where we were heading. So this is just a stop on the road to get to here. But it helps us get to here because that dissonance of that G sharp is going to push us up to that A. Let's hear it. Right? So you encounter augmented chords in jazz a lot. Just like diminished chords, not so much in pop music or anything like that. Definitely in classical music because we have these kinds of transitions all the time. But Thing to remember about augmented chords is that they do not exist in the key, in a major key. You have to do something fancy to get yourself an augmented chord in a major key. But the augmented chord as is 2 major thirds stacked on top of each other.